Mm. Beautiful, beloved brothers and sisters, soul family. I'm Giaya Ariati.
And I'm Raya White Wolf.
And I'm introducing Raya in to meet you all on this beautiful space. Thank you for subscribing, following, and liking on my YouTube channel. I am the Oracle for the 144 and beyond. I'm of sound heart and sound mind. And Raya, how would you describe yourself for those that are receiving this?
I would describe myself as a master of anything, traveling throughout time and dimension, remembering past lives, being on a journey of remembrance the past 4 years since my Kundalini awakening, studying with masters around the world, connecting with ancient sites as in Egypt and Cambodia and Greece, and remembering the structure of reality and the blueprint of reality through traveling through the realms, through the ethereal realms of the mystery schools of Thoth, and remembering the blueprint of the new divine human and how we can truly anchor this Christos energy here on this earth into the light grids and the song lines of the earth. I'm a coach, healer, ceremonialist. I am many things.
As am I. And which is it? And one of those interesting aspects around when you're asked to find a label and explain yourself, because when you work in the laws of God's law, the I am presence, finding a energetic vibrational signature that explains who I be can be quite challenging. So beautiful introduction.
Because we are truly everything. It's like we are that I am presence. And there is no label, box, or barrier that needs to hold us. We're just simply the conduit of source and whatever wants to move through us in that particular moment of expression.
And then there's the other side of this, and what we're going to be doing today, hopefully, in the best capacity that we have. For those of you that tune in regularly, you would know that I speak a lot to the human lens as well as the multidimensional. And so we've got a couple of topics today that we're going to discuss around breaking down the matrix illusions from the different layers and the different dimensions as to the control structures that keep us in enslavement and entrapment. And this is where I guess labels are also important, because we are human beings and we live off language and communication. And so for us to explain something in such great detail, we also need to have archetypal energies, energy signatures, and vibrational resonance to the language and the communication that we use. And so I would love to share a little bit around this beautiful guest, being Raya White Wolf. Raya and I have traversed and journeyed through time and space, and we've had multiple past lives and multiple past life remembrance in the integration of this life, as well as we've journeyed in sacred union together and parted ways to collect information, work on the grids, build the tribe and the collective mission. And we have reconnected in the beautiful lands of Thailand, and we are in Copenhagen. And we were both divinely guided here by Source for the 8-8 portal. And so in regards to what Raya shared in the Christos, and we're here to assist in the anchoring of Christ consciousness and to bring the remembrance of the I am. That is exactly what we've just traversed for the last couple of days. And so we're on the other side, and we would like to share that purity and that clarity with you through the different topics in different ways, so that you can receive the activations and the remembrance just by receiving this conversation. Is there anything in regards to your interpretation of our conversation that you might want to share in awareness, warning?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that I would like to share. just from the tipping point, the crescendo of consciousness that we just traversed. So the 8-8 portal was a powerful day. It's where our sun comes out of alignment and we come into alignment with the great central sun, which is 27 times more powerful than our sun itself. It is our spiritual sun. It awakens our DNA. So on that day, we held a powerful portal here in Thailand, and then Giaya held another powerful portal online. We connected grids from Kauai to Thailand to Egypt all in the same moment to build the trinity of a mycelial network of consciousness all around the planet, of the emergence of the coherence of the mind and the heart of the of the Trinity, the pyramid.
Yeah. So through the physical portal that was created, and then also through the online Lionsgate tipping point, and all of the people around the world that have had the same message and that are here for the same purpose, there was an anchoring of a crystalline Christ consciousness grid and a timeline for humanity to now choose with more ease and grace. So my interpretation of this and my knowing of this is that when we are effectively able to anchor a specific consciousness into the earth and into the diamond center, that we are then creating synapses, pathways for other individual human beings to choose this with more ease and grace.
Because it happens as like a ripple effect, right? In a collective consciousness, the more people that awaken, it's like lighting a match and watching, all the matches light around it. When something drops into the collective consciousness, like similar to the Maharishi effect, right? The Maharishi effect is where like they would have thousands of people meditating and focusing on that collective intention, and then like crime rates dropped and all these things around the world were like miracles that were unfolding. And it's similar to that. It's like our bodies are changing, they're upgrading, we're becoming more telepathic in nature, we're becoming more connected to the trees, the plants, the animals, the people, we're living more heart-based consciousness, really moving through reality as feeling beings and remembering the essence of love and connection, instead of allowing our mind to control the narrative, to get enslaved by the fear constantly of, oh, well, I don't have enough, I'm not good enough, or the isolation that the human ego tries to loop us into.
Yeah. And this looping that has been created that keeps us from accessing these different points of consciousness. We want to talk about, well, my receiving guidance was to talk about some of these concepts so that we can bring some awareness, and also to allow ourselves to flow with whatever source guides. But in regards to the ego looping and the structures of control that are taking place that make it challenging for us to just access this information because we all hold it within us, what is it that you see as one of the main ways that humanity doesn't recognize who they are?
Well, let's just put a disclaimer right here. So take what resonates, leave the rest. This is based on information that we've received within our human and multidimensional experience. So we invite you to tune in with an open heart and open mind and be willing to receive.
Yeah, beautiful. And something may not specifically resonate, not because it's not true, but also because it could be hitting potential energy blocks or wounding or an aspect of the mind's barriers in consciousness that prevent the opening to feel the resonance, because there's just too much in the way that if you broke down that paradigm, it would just be too much emotional and energetic overwhelm. So as you do receive this conversation, it is important to be aware we are both activators. We both work with Kundalini. We're both quantum healers, as well as many other labels that whilst you're receiving this conversation, it's far more than a conversation. And you may receive vision, you might receive remembrance or downloads, and even your Kundalini might start to move through your body. So that would be a normal response. If it does feel energetically overwhelming and you're sitting here in the open-minded, open heart connection, then and you're feeling like it's too much, just pause and take some time, go ground, come visit at another time. Make sure that you're in a space that is supportive for you to remember things or to awaken into different consciousness levels. I know for me, I didn't have the choice, and I would often I would often go into remembrance I would be driving, or I would be at the school, or right before a client, or so many different things, and I would be, oh my God, what did I just unlock? And it could be emotionally overwhelming. So I do feel that these disclaimers are very important to be nourishing and nurturing to your human being.
And to create safe containers, so people know what they are tuning into. And just something that I want to add to what you just said is, really tuning into your breath, allowing your breath to be the conduit into these places that you may be feeling blocks or barriers, as at times the ego will arise and completely tune out the information because it is breaking down the lens of reality that it is used to. So it's like breaking the box, and that perception of reality, it is death to that version of the ego.
Beautifully said.
Sound.
Beautifully said. And so in relation to some of these ego constructs and the way that they have kept us from ourselves, we have a couple of themes. One of them specifically that is close to both of our hearts is sexuality. And the truth of sexuality and the truth of Kundalini, or some might call it Tantra. I don't personally resonate with the word Tantra, but that's because of the constructs of this reality. And
Tantra has been distorted over time and space, but I feel like there is many forms of Tantra and many forms of beauty within that. It's the contrast of what we have the ability to experience. But that's your truth.
Yeah, and I love hearing the perspective of someone else who sees it differently, because I can open myself up to where am I still locking myself into a paradigm that is not allowing me to see the full beauty through the eyes of God of an experience. And I mean, in all honest truth, I think the reason that I have so much distortion to do with Tantra is that I am one of the original creators of such practices in this reality, and the ownership and the accountability for some of the distortions. I feel like for me, that's where the paradigms still sit, is where I'm not fully willing to claim my part in the things that I still see in the here and the now.
Well, and with Tantra, right? It's like the philosophy of Tantra is accepting everything. So the full acceptance of our shadow, the full acceptance of our unworthiness that surfaces. Oh, well, I wrecked my car today, full acceptance of that, full surrender of that, but also like accepting the beauty of life and everything that is around us all the time, and making love in every moment with the earth, because we are in loving relationship with everything at all times. It's always a movement of giving and receiving. It doesn't have to be with the partner. It can be beautiful with the partner when it is intentionalized to the point that it comes from the heart and not distorted from the primal lens of reality.
And so that's where the stickiness, I guess, for me around just going to call in the eyes of God with this conversation. All right. So in this reality, we have been mutated in our sexuality.
Yeah.
And some of those ways is there's a lot of shame around sexuality. There's a lot around conditioning of bodies. There's a lot
looks.
Looks. Even like the way genitals are supposed to look. And then you've got porn, and you've got the kind of validation through sexual distortions. So when you look at the current programs that we are living in, how do you see that we'll say the previous controllers of this reality have used sexuality to disconnect someone from their spirit?
Well, I mean, when we break it down to the finite level, you have billboards that have women with like big breasts and wearing like hardly any clothes. And you have porn that is like distorting the ritual of sexuality and how it should be. So it's like men become instead of channeling our energy up to use it for creation or to use it with intention, it is then being disputed out the root chakra. And it is just, and sex is sacred. Sex is the closest that we can be, the closest vibration that we can be to spirit. So it's a very beautiful, beautiful thing. But when it's distorted and people don't have any other idea of how it truly should be or how it is, then it's interesting. I lost my word in.
Well, that's interesting. Anyway, because there was something that came up as you were speaking around it's the closest vibration to source that we can have. Now, I don't feel that as truth. I believe source energy has many different interpretations of the fullness, and the I am can be experienced in all of life. And I feel like this is its own distortion in, like, say, New Age spirituality and New Age sexuality is the theory or the story that we've created is to be the closest to God is through this Kundalini current or through sexuality. And from what I have journeyed with myself, I feel like that is one way, and it's a beautiful, orgasmic, and blissful way. Right. But then I can be just as connected to source if I'm sitting in stillness and from this heart octave and that radiates through all of me. And so there is this seeking, I guess, that can happen, right? Because we do have this deep ingrained program that to meet source or connect, we'll say connection, is through sexuality. And so when you have a false matrix paradigm that through intimacy you have connection, then there becomes this need for connection to find that inner guided source expression.
Because you don't already have it in yourself, so you're seeking for something outside of yourself that you don't already have. But it's like when we look at nature, and when we look at the universe, it's like Eros is the fundamental level of the universe. It's like when we layer it down, we have mathematics, Eros, music, and the universe is homoerotic in nature. And so it's like that Kundalini current, that life force energy is, that divine frequency. But it doesn't have to be obtained through intimacy. It is our natural state of being when we can release the limitations, release the distortions, and we can fully open our heart to receive what is all around us at all times already. You know, we can merge the higher self into the body, and that blissful state, that beingness, is where we sit all the time.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful to recognize this though, right? Because if we unconsciously seek spirit and connection through sexuality, whether, if that's the internal driver is I want to meet God within me, but I know that there's also a window of meeting that through another. And this is where there's not actually wrongness about this either, is that you can actually meet a level of source through intimacy that maybe you haven't even met with yourself yet. And someone opens this portal of remembrance for you. And so in this, what I've seen, and I remember when I was first shown a vision, and it was quite a profound vision, and way before I had remembered who I was. And I saw a vision where I was facilitating a group of people out on beautiful grass on a mountain, and they were all in their individual spaces, and they were, I guess, effectively self-pleasuring and having these divine source expressions of awakening into source and through self-touch. And it was like a group of people getting out of the shame narrative and being able to be in pleasure, in orgasmic portal of connection, creation, source together. And I remember going, the world is not ready for that. And I am not going to become the new version of Osho. Right? But what was also really powerful at that time was that I was like, this is our root chakra. Our root chakra connects us through our channels, through the earth. And I was able to see, like, in an instant, where the illusion of this reality, where the matrix has cut us off from our root chakra through through pornography, through sexual abuse, through all of these different constructs. Because if you're not connected, if you can't even feel your root chakra, then this energy can't run through.
You're not connected to the earth. You are constantly in scarcity and looping back and forth between these thought programs in your mind. And then when these thought programs are running, you're wanting to escape the thought programs. So you want to distract from something. So there you distract with porn, cigarettes, drugs, cell phones are the big one now. TV, food, it goes all across the board. But something that I would like to add to what you were just speaking into, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So a vision that I had remembered from ancient Egypt, and something we've spoke about in the past, is these priest and priestess, they would journey together. They would journey together for weeks, months, years, 100 years, 1,000 years, to exchange codes and wisdom. And then codes and wisdom were exchanged through Kala Chakra Tantra. And it was a purity of Tantra and of learning of the mystery schools, because we all hold codes and information. It's like I hold a fractal of the consciousness, you hold a fractal of the consciousness. And when we come together in that union, then it's like we are beginning to put the pieces together. And not only that, it's like the alchemy allows the transmutation to occur, or not to occur, to be initiated within our cells, our molecules, and our DNA. And it also allows us to be able to see the eyes of God and the purity in another. So it's like seeing you and me me and you as a reflection of myself. And when the magnetism and the resonance is there, you know that you are there for a purpose, a reason, and there is something to be explored.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I know for a lot of the priestess that I have journeyed with through the initiations of the mystery school that I facilitate, is that there has been this concept that they've come in with, that they need to exchange codes sexually when it comes to Kundalini. And the truth is, well, actually right now, if I said, hey, do you want some codes, Raya? And like, we could literally just exchange.
It's energy.
Yeah, it's energy exchange. Now, the beauty of this is when you understand that you can exchange energy however you like. What is your choice? It's like, how do I want to exchange this? Do I want to do it through physical sexual alchemy because that would be yummy on my body?
Yeah.
Or is this person literally just come into my life experience? Maybe they do have sexual, like chi or kundalini or dragon codes that are very much in the lower chakra systems, but you're getting drawn to them and activated by them. And it's only for this specific frequency or template or activation. And to be able to sit with yourself in that discernment of, what is this person to me and how would I like to receive this? And
what is the highest for humanity, for myself, and for, my evolution.
Yeah.
Because as for me and as for you, being activators, especially with Kundalini, it's like, we carry a lot of magnetism and a lot of life force. So a lot of people come into the field and, we activate Kundalini, and then, it's like they're drawn to us. And then, it's our work here on this earth. It's not about the sexuality of it. It's there comes a time and a space, and it's about coming to the point of, what is the intention? What is the intention behind this? What am I gaining? What are they gaining? Is it in alignment?
Yeah. And another aspect of that is that we do exchange. So when we're not only exchanging energy on a physical level, but if we're having a physical intimacy connection, we're actually exchanging DNA cells. Now, I know that, when you transcend certain paradigms of this universe, you can actually create ways that you don't absorb or say mimic and merge. But for majority of the human race, you are exchanging DNA. And it takes a lot of mastery to go into a sexual connection with someone and go, I'm actually not going to take anything on from you. I'm just going to be pure source frequency, and I'm going to leave the experience as I came, or more connected than I was. But when, and this is something that I see a lot, and I would love to hear your opinion, is that as soon as the body goes into any form of contraction or fear, you're onboarding in a sexual exchange the DNA, the trauma, the imprints of the other individual. Have you, what is your interpretation of this?
So when we go down into the molecular level and look into quantum physics, something called quantum entanglement. So quantum entanglement is where, you can be on a completely opposite end of the galaxy and feel the same emotion. And this happens even when we kiss someone. It's like, so feeling, if that desire is coming from a primal desire, or if it is heart-based unconditional love. I want to explore you, you want to explore me. There is a unconditional love, and thinking about what are the repercussions of this, right? Because say I'm sitting in heart frequency, and this person is sitting in primal earth frequency, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if they have a lot of trauma that they haven't transcended, and there's a lot of story, a lot of ego, and a lot of human conditioning then that is then being brought, like magnetized to you. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, why do I feel this way? You know, and thinking that it's yours and it's not yours. And then you have to go through this whole cord cutting process that takes, you know, sometimes years, because so they say that it takes 7 years to get someone's energy completely out of you, unless you are doing like these spiritual hygiene practices. Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing to bring up, because I've had a few different individuals reach out and say, I've heard if I have a sacred sexual or a sexual interaction with someone, that they'll be within my field for 7 years. And I'm like, well, actually, they don't need to be if you're clearing your energy field, if you're being intentional. Where are you coming from? Exactly everything that Raya just spoke into. If you're in a practice of connecting to source, that is an illusion in itself. But for the majority, yeah. So if we look at, you know, these different paradigms of sexuality, and you've got, I'm the first to say that I've sought validation in love through men for years, and the amount of energy that I had to clear from this vessel was insane amounts of other people's energy. No wonder I couldn't feel who I was. I didn't know who I was. I was so emotionally unstable. Mentally, I didn't know what thoughts were mine. I would have considered myself bipolar at times. And I didn't have any stability. I was super anxious, and I was very out of body, because this body was full of all the things.
And I mean, so coming back to like the idea of Tantra, right? You know, during like the Temple of Hathor and the cult of Hathor, like they would go through periods of purification and abstinence from any kind of sexuality, to be able to harness the spirit within the body before their vessel was prepared and ready and charged to be able to merge energy with someone, and then to be able to transcend the reality of time and space.
Yeah. And that's that is something that is possible when you move through and have the capacity to open all 7 of your chakra systems. And that with what Raya is referring to, one of the processes that I work in is the Baraka process, or the purification process. And really, to consistently be in that, you need to have come to the purification, where you no longer need to clear, because you're just in pure creation, and it alchemizes itself out through your source connection, because there's no separation. But these periods of time, because I also see a lot of people either fully abstaining, and then they're like terrified to go back into connection.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I've done all this purification on my body, and I don't want it to have like.
And that's a story.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a story that they are afraid to go back into that, because they're afraid to open their heart again, is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, reading in between the lines. You know, they went through an abstinence process because they were hurt, and then, you know, yeah. So yeah, it's just using your discernment and really like tuning into yourself. How does it feel within your body? Does your body feel fully open and expanded and activated, or do you feel closed? Are these red flags coming in like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this with this person? You know, if that comes in, then don't.
Or the other side of this is be very willing for some of the consequences. And depending on where you're at in your spiritual journey and your level of consciousness, that consequence will be different for each person. I know that some of the priestess that I work with have had these moments where they've gone and done the random night out drinking, and they've picked up someone that they wouldn't normally do, and they've not done it consciously. They have done that, and then they've been left with the ripple effect in the next day, where they've had to clear demonic attachments. They've had to clear the fact that they're entangled with someone's consciousness that is so not at the same vibrational resonance, and so they're getting pushed and pulled. And how would you specifically explain to the viewers that are watching in relation to the connections to the satanic aspects of sexuality?
Before I go there, can I add something to what you just said?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I feel through my own journey, through your own journey, we've all had a journey, and the journey it allows us to integrate the wisdom of the experience. And a lot of times it puts us in some dark points in life. And I feel everything happens in divine alignment for a reason, for a learning process. If it's an initiation, then we are initiated into a teaching, into a learning to be able to lead others through this process. And at times, it feels like, we completely screwed up, but it's when we bring that aspect in, that hurts us worse than, just accepting it to begin with. There are many pathways that lead to source. And within this reality that we live in the 3D, or between the 3D and the 6D, however, you wanna say. So this is a land of duality where we have to learn and we have to experience that right and wrong is just a construct of the mind. They're just choices, and we have to make choices in order to evolve and to learn.
Yeah. And this deconditioning from right and wrong and seeing everything as some form of lesson and awareness, and we create every experience we create, right? Yeah. So even if it's an unconscious experience and you end up in more contrast and you end up in a more separation point, if you are able to go, okay, well, what was I actually trying to teach myself?
Yes.
Or remember, then we can have a much more easeful allowing and openness to see the awareness, rather than the shame, the wrongness, the projection, the blame, and getting lost in the emotions. And you can sit in that cycle for so long.
Yeah.
So long.
Yeah.
And really, like, it's quite fascinating for me when I look back at some of these different points of time where things would take years to alchemize out and to make sense of, is because someone had a relationship 5 years ago and they've still got heartstrings or unmet core wounds that were being, here, this is where you can find this element of yourself, and it's not being seen, which creates a disconnect from, or a replaying of this dynamic in the current reality. And so that very question, anytime something contrasting happens, anytime that there's something that seems like it might have a pain point or some level of suffering, if you can just go into a place of your mind-heart coherence and ask yourself, okay, if I created this, why? Why would I create this? What is the unseen beauty to what's hidden here for me, so that I can reclaim that aspect of myself? And then it's actually quite fascinating how quickly the sting dissolves.
Because you've come to a level of acceptance and you have made the choice to move through it. Because as they say, the only way out is through, and sometimes that is through the muck. It's like the blue lotus, right? The way the blue lotus blooms is through the mud. So we have to climb through the mud, and then we become this beautiful, brilliant flower of magic.
Yeah. And I know that this is what so many of us have done, to heal, to journey, to be in life. And then it's also really important for me in the truth that I've come to, because I have done so much of that. I've done so much learning and initiating through contrast and pain, that at any point that you can say, I actually choose to learn, initiate, and grow through connection.
Yeah, because we have the ability to remember ourselves through beauty and love. And that is like the frequency of synchronicity, right? Synchronicity leads us to where we need to be in exactly the right time, and opportunities align. We meet people that we all of a sudden remember from past lives, or people that offer us these random miracles and opportunities. And I feel like that is the middle way. That is our dharmic path being activated towards the more that we have the ability to shine our light, just like the sun. The sun comes out every day and shines its light. It doesn't ask the moon if it's okay to do that, So I feel like when we are constantly giving and receiving, because if we are holding our gifts, if we are holding our song inside of us and we are not sharing it with the world, then that is negatively polarized, because we are being service to self, as in isolating, not sharing who we are.
Yeah. And for so many of you that do tune in, and if this is your first video on my channel, it's beautiful because you get two very different perspectives, is that most of you have, there, where'd it go? Most of you have this persecution wound. There you have this fear of being seen based on a past story, whether it's whatever the story is: judgment, banishment, wrongness, shame, something went wrong. There's infinite reasons for you not to shine your light. But what you can see from this is that just by us, this is the reflection I get all of the time, by me standing up, even in my light language and all of my authenticity, my truth, my expressions in my more passionate and activated human, and into the channeled expression of cosmic wisdom. To be all of me authentically allows for you to meet yourself through the mirror of me.
Yes.
And that's what's so beautiful about, okay, if I choose connection, if I choose to just stay here, no matter what out there is, even if you're not doing it for yourself, right? And this is how you can trick your ego. And I think it's great to use the ego and understand the ego so that you can actually use the mind to get out of the mind.
Yeah.
And allow yourself freedom. Is that if you need to trick yourself that for me to stay connected and to choose myself, that allows others, if you're service to self, service to other orientated and motivated, then use that. Use that as like, okay, I want to be of service to the planet. I want to help heal, but I need to see that I need to also be here. I can't do everything that I really desire unless I'm really meeting these aspects of connection within myself.
Absolutely, because we can only control what is inside of us. We can't control anything outside of us. And what the aspect that I was saying is that if we're holding our gifts inside of us, it's like we're not allowing the energy to flow. We're not allowing the frequency of giving and receiving to be activated. It's like the flow of the water, right? When the water stops, we're reluctant to change. And that's like the patriarchal structure. It tries to hold on for dear life for everything that it has, because it's falling apart, and it wants to conquer then when it falls apart. So, and this happens at the end of every cycle. The fall of Atlantis, the fall of Egypt, history repeating itself because of the reluctancy of change. When ego sees change, it freezes because it is death to the ego. And it's really not death to the ego, it's transcendence to the ego, because then the ego becomes integrated within the spirit, and we integrate the higher self within the body, and we become the multidimensional beings that we came here to be.
Yeah, the ego, when you look at some of the aspects of the ego paradigms or the constructs that have control, when you step out of one of its programs, one of its identities, you see how much value in this current reality, this paradigm that we do live in, it has served. It's like, actually, without that, I probably wouldn't have survived this. Yeah. I wouldn't have managed to make sense of this. I wouldn't have understood this. This would have been too much. Yeah. And it allows us to have gratitude for it and for its role in this current reality. My desire is that we step out of a reality that is ran by ego, but in our current reality, there is not enough beings that have transcended ego to nourish the children that are being born into the world, to keep them out of creating an ego construct, to keep them alive.
Yes. And I feel like the ego is a pattern repeater, and it has served us throughout thousands of years when we had to war and protect ourselves and hunt and famine, disease, and all these things upon the planet. And a lot of that is ingrained still in our DNA. It's outdated programming, though. And within, the solar flares hitting the earth and upgrading our DNA and everything coming to the surface, what is happening is it is coming to the surface to be released and requantified and reprogrammed. As these new neural pathways are being created, we can program ourselves. You look into epigenetics, for instance, and it shows you that your genes are not what we think they are. And there's so many breakthroughs in science and quantum physics and everything showing us that our reality is holographic in nature, and we are the co-creators of our reality. And we just have to learn how to harness that frequency and ride that wave. And if something comes up, sit with it, build a routine, a spiritual practice, be devoted to that practice in order to come to a point of neutrality to where you can release and to be able to go within and to really look at that pattern that's arriving and being like, well, is this me, or is this an outdated program? Is this somebody else's? And it will resonate in your body, whatever it is.
Yeah. That level of understanding the programs and witnessing what is your current way of knowing when you are ran by, say, we'll just stitch to the ego construct as a separation self. It is the pattern, and it's specifically run by the primal aspect of the brain, so that it can go into the unconscious, collect the data from the unconscious, from the entire Earth's history that hasn't been alchemized or cleared out and healed, and it goes, this is this, and to avoid this happening, I need to do this, because that's how I survived all of these years back, or that's how this past experience played out, and this is what's happened. So if I don't want this to happen, then I need to do this. And the brain is an amazing problem solver. So if you know that your brain can problem solve, and it's based on a data connection, you can specifically ask it to release these fear and protection programs, so that you can ask. So one of the ways that I talk to and with clients and different individuals is ask the brain to choose a program or a neuropathway pattern or energy signature that, instead of focusing on fear and protection, that it asks for, show me awareness and truth.
Yes.
So then, because so many people are attached to the ego, because they're like, well, without that, then what happens when I drive down the road and there's something there and there's, I don't have that part of my brain's reptilian construct.
Just be here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the trick as well, is there's all these little tricky things that are placed in our mind's consciousness, that if you're in awareness and truth, you'll sense, see it, and feel it way before it happens.
Because your intuition is on, you're always divinely guided. And what it is like, the ego, it boxes us into the familiar, something that we are always used to, and we don't, from that lens, it's like we want what's familiar because it's comfortable. We want our small little box in hell. And we don't have the ability to perceive God's greater algorithm, right? And, when we can bring the awareness outside of that box and see all the possibilities, as, we live in this multiverse of beautiful opportunities. We have limitless potential, limitless choices that could be made, and timelines, each decision, the timeline shifts. So it's like, who do you want to be? Treat life like a video game. And, then you end up in places like this. And just following the synchronicity, following the technology of the heart, because the heart knows. The heart is where your remembrance is activated from, where these memories from the emotions, learning to harness the energy of these emotions.
Yeah. It's about choosing to consciously recognize the power of the waking dream, and that any word, thought, feeling that you are choosing in any moment is creating the possibility of the reality. And if you are able to see that my thought construct or my ego paradigm is boxing me into that, this is the only reality I know, right? And we've all heard about Plato's cave, and it's like, you don't know what's outside of that until you have enough courage or faith, which doesn't have at the time a logical rationalization, because you are only aware of what the human mind is only aware of, what it knows, what it's come to think, see, feel, experience. And so the human mind only runs from that program. It's
five senses.
Yeah. And it's only in sound mind or source connection or altered states of consciousness, which are really our true state, that we see beyond this this paradigm. And then once you see beyond it, it breaks down, right? And then you're like, oh,
veil of illusion is
it's not actually like that at all. There's this possibility, and I can do it this way and this way. But we have to be willing to really see how many different false paradigms have I created. False paradigms about myself, false paradigms about other people, about reality, so that I can become the dream weaver of my own reality.
Because truly, like, we, when we have these things like arrive within us, especially when it comes to like conscious relating and things like that, we isolate ourselves and we project the way that we feel about ourselves onto other people, thinking that's the way they feel about us. It's this, and then it causes friction within dynamics, and we close down. So it's like, how can we create safety in these containers to be transparent, to always speak our truth, no matter what, and to have the difficult conversations, even when they are very difficult and we feel like we want to lock up. But when we can learn how to get used to that, it's just like anything, when we get used to doing something, it becomes natural. It becomes programmed within the neural networks. So, it changes the identity.
It looks like you naturally weaved in a topic. Now, the reason I feel that we have such distorted viewpoints around, one of the reasons around communication and relating is the movies and the fairy tale and the idea that well, one woman naturally innately believe through conditioning that men are as intuitive and they just know what they're experiencing and they're feeling. Now, the majority of women in our reality are more feeling based. The majority of men are more in their mind. Now, that is not a true natural state of being, but that's what's happened through fragmentation and separation. And so because women are sort of more emotionally overwhelmed and men are more up in their head and thought overwhelmed, then there is this projection that, like, a male will go, well, that's the way I think, so why would she do that? That's like, it doesn't make sense, right?
And that's not being open to someone else's perspective of life. And what has happened throughout time and space, well, throughout his story, is that, you know, the men have been emasculated, and so within the emasculation, it has brought them more into their feminine energy, and the women have had to survive and to create, so it's brought them into more of a masculine energy. So not just this spiritual war within us of masculine and feminine being unbalanced, it's also like, you know, happening in our real world situations too. It's like people are getting married that, you know, and staying married because it is comfortable. You know, they don't want to leave each other and they have kids together, but, you know, they're severely unhappy. They don't know how to process trauma, you know, so they end up distracting. And they both, you know, barely even talk. And it's just this toxic nuclear family that is going on in the world. And when we can learn how to heal, we don't just heal ourselves, we're healing for our ancestors, our parents. And then when we have kids, our kids come in, you know, trauma free or almost trauma free of that ancestral program.
And so, what are some of the ways that you have practically worked through this yourself?
Well, we're going here.
Okay, what are some of the ways that you would assist, say, those that are receiving on how to practically work through this? What are some steps or processes?
Okay. Yeah. So with balancing masculine and feminine energy, you know, because yeah, as for me, it's like I was in my feminine energy most of my life, and my masculine energy and my balance is really coming in now. And the feminine energy is the flow, the ability to flow. The masculine is the structure and the action. So and you have to have both, because it's like with the masculine, a way to balance masculine energy is going to the gym, you know, boxing, creating logistical structures for business. You know, feminine energy is more creative energy with art and music and art, music, healing, yoga, you know, anything that doesn't really have structure and is more flow is feminine. Masculine is more structured. But I invite you to, you know, go within yourself and, you know, allow your cells, your molecules, and your DNA to talk to you. How balanced are you? You know, is your right and your left hemisphere, are they in unison together, or is your masculine and feminine, are they at war with each other? And it really factors into all areas of our life, right? When we are unbalanced, you know, we start to project on people our illusions that we're holding within ourselves. We become angry, we become ungrateful, and it is all trauma that we are holding. And when we begin to work with like the archetypes and, the dark masculine, the light feminine, and learning the aspects of each of these archetypes and each of like the light and the dark and the attributes that they have, then we can learn what energy that we're in, right? And how to integrate them within our field, within our life, so we can really find a structure within our reality to align all areas of our life and become the metamorphosis of the human, the multidimensional human that we came here to be, to create, to be of service, to be open in love, to be connected to the earth, to people, to feel safe in our bodies and integrated in our bodies, and not be afraid to have connection, to have to not be afraid to have connection, to not be afraid to share our gifts and our brilliance with the world.
Yeah, because I was very much attracted to polarity coaching and these dynamics of masculine and feminine. And then I was shown very clearly through channeling and source and self-reflection and healing that every single one of us has, although you were saying like you may have experienced your earlier years more in your feminine, there's a strong masculine internal reality. Now I was the opposite. I had a very strong outside masculine, but my unconscious or my emotional overwhelm was actually very feminine. So when I would get triggered or activated, I would just turn into this total emotional feminine overwhelming mess. But anytime that I wasn't completely broken, I was very strong in my masculine. And so we're always balanced. It's just that we're trying to witness ourselves through another, through the mirrors of reality. And when it comes to unity consciousness and this idea of divine masculine, divine feminine, Raya is a divine masculine, I am a divine feminine, and we have come to understanding that balance, unity, where left and right are no longer divided, up and down are no longer seen as, the above is more connected to God than the earth is connected, right? These are all these frameworks of separation where we cut ourselves up here, and light is and dark, and these ideas are what keep us from seeing truth. So when you can see the self-truth of both light and dark, or masculine and feminine, because the masculine and feminine truly is everything in reality. If you want to understand reality, as soon as you start to understand those two dynamics, you can see everything. You can understand every person that comes into your reality. It's not even energy reading, really. It's just, I've been that, I've done that, I see that, I know what that wound is, I know that that wound connects to this wound and this does to this. And it's so easy to see, and you can be an amazing coach or an amazing healer because you've started to understand the very fabric of this reality. And it truly is you could say light and dark, but masculine and feminine is much more comfortable, I guess, expression for a lot of.
Well, yeah, I don't feel like it's masculine and feminine that is light and dark. There's archetypes of light masculine, light feminine, so on and so forth, but it's positively and negatively polarized. And then when you can bring it together and create that union within, that's when the union is reflected without, and then you become in union with everything. And it's about the integration of the love of the heart and the wisdom of the mind, and creating that coherence. And within that coherence, everything becomes a playground. And also, when that coherence is created, you can then begin to separate the layers of reality to be able to see where these things are coming from and these energies are playing out, and to bring it all back into a state of oneness. Because when we are, per se, in our mind, it's like all these different dimensions and all these layers of reality. It's like we're getting overloaded with information and we cannot decipher the information that is coming through. And when we have the ability to empty our mind, drop into the breath, come into a place of stillness, then we can begin to separate what is going on and where things are coming from. And we can begin to tune into spirit and what is being guided from spirit and not from our ego construct trying to keep us safe and trapped within the illusion.
And what comes up for me when I hear that is the concept of intentionally disassociating from something or separating it, because that's a very real and needed part of self-discovery of the I am. Because although I am all things, I am still not. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a separate individual to you. In this reality, I am Gaia, and I'm made up of certain personalities and certain experience, and I've journeyed certain things through time and space. And that's why Raya has his own perspective, his own wisdom, his own keys, his own codes. And so when we come together, we create this unique signature. But without knowing your own energy signature, your own essence, by going, actually, this is not me, and this is not me, and what is this? This isn't me, and this is that. And when you are able to separate yourself from what is not you, then you can find the true essence of who you are. And so this is where using duality, using polarity to self-reflect is so powerful. It's the same as this story of spiritual bypass that we have around being in love and light and just having compassion for everyone and kindness and looking at our life experience. Yes, it brought me to this journey and it taught me this thing. Well, actually, in truth, if I only look at that lens and I don't look at this lens,
you're completely disregarding it.
Yeah, you're separating, you're actually still dividing yourself. You're not evolving, and you're not coming into that unified self, because yes, it has taught me these things. Yes, it did initiate me in this way. It did all of that. And it brought me to this point of who I am today. But I wasn't given the love, the care, the safety, the whatever in this experience. And I'm either really, really brokenhearted about that, really, really angry about that, or there's unprocessed aspects of the shadow. And not just the shadow, because sometimes with shadow work expressions is we talk about what's wrong in the shadow, what needs to be changed, what's limiting us, but we often don't go, well, there's all those things that you actually really love about your shadow, like these power feeding or these like false senses of stability or control or something that even like gets you off and gives you a false sense of connection.
And speaking into that is like, when we feed into this false sense of connection and this false sense of power, it releases something called oxytocin. It's similar to, when we watch horror movies, right? And it is a neurochemical that is released in our brain that is similar to heroin. So it becomes addicting. That's why people become addicted to toxic relationships. And then they want to continue to go back to these trauma bonds because they are literally hooked.
Yeah. And I love hearing this in relation to how the chemicals and the hormones shift with our trauma. So it's like there's a pattern of toxic behavior that is created, becomes a loop, because you're like getting a fix and you're getting a false sense of connection, and then you're experiencing some kind of disconnect, and then you want, this way of how we have been conditioned and programmed is to seek that connection, and then we go in these ups and downs and all arounds, and and then and then you talk, I'll get the dog, because I won't be able to hear him telepathically and communicate. Oh, hands. Okay. And I'll just sit there. Um, so with this, it's not just the oxytocin, our entire biology of the human body, based on our masculine and our feminine concepts of how we see ourselves in our emotions, our thoughts create or our energy or light, and then you've got frequency vibration creates a thought, then creates an emotion, and it's in the body. Yeah. And so the body is the biologically way it is presented is the way that it's made up on your very thought system. So if you're having hormone imbalance, if you're having mental instability, if you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, all of these things, they don't come from the biology of your body. Your body is perfectly in balance when it's imbalanced from that place of unity. It's a byproduct of the thought systems and
the reactions that are occurring and the decisions that you're making. You know, you're hooked, and you need to detox your body, and then your body can come to a state of presence and unison.
So what are some of the ways that you could guide safe detoxification for the majority that might be listening, that would assist in maybe a bit of a reset, coming back into themselves, being able to?
Well, first, I mean, we need to create a safe container. Safety allows people to open to the possibility of living a different lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You know, because it depends on what we are detoxifying from. If we're detoxifying from a relationship, then, you know, I recommend working with a coach on that, learning how to reprogram the neural network, breath work, Kundalini activation, massage. Now, if we are detoxifying from drugs and tobacco, porn, things like that, you know, finding new thought patterns. Like, so if you were doing drugs, finding something else to do rather than drugs, learn to study, you know, learn to take a course, bettering yourself, as knowledge brings the liberation and the gnosis to the being. You know, start going to the gym. Ice baths and sauna are the two most important things.
For some. I think some of the ways that I would suggest with detoxification of energies or balancing and reset is finding a way to stabilize the nervous system. And that does come with some sense of creating a safe space or learning how to have safety in your body. So stabilizing the nervous system just might be, you know, self-soothing. I know that me and Raya have had many times where we've been sitting with ourselves, right? And nurturing ourselves, because we have to be, we've had to be the parent that we didn't have to hold us in those moments, to retrain our body, ourselves, our heart, our nervous system, our brain, to go, it's okay, you're not dying, you're okay, you're safe.
And it's constantly reminding ourselves that, and allowing us to bring that love and to bring that power back to ourselves. Because if we are detoxifying from everything, so let me just add one more thing to the detoxification. First of all, when we are detoxifying, we need to do a fast, at least a 3-day fast, getting everything out of the body, flooding the body out, whether it's a juice fast, water fast, because a lot of us in this world, we're stuck in our root chakra, as we were speaking to. And when we are stuck in our root chakra, we don't feel safe on this earth. And the energy is not moving. And we need to flush our body. It's similar. Our body is the most advanced technology in the entire multiverse. And but it works similar to a car. And, you know, cars need oil changes sometimes. And that's the same way with the body. Like, we need to cleanse our lungs if we were smoking. We need to cleanse our liver if we were doing drugs. We need to cleanse our gut if we have been eating processed foods, anything that can contain parasites. We need to completely cleanse in order for the root chakra to unlock and for the energy to be able to be brought up into the higher centers. And then we also, a lot of us have these, especially people that have been addicted to porn, they've engaged in primal aspects of the primal desires of sexuality, drugs, and other things like that. There's loosh portals that are literally in their root chakra, but that's another conversation. So
I feel like I have a piece that is important.
Okay.
Is the different genetic makeup as well, like the way that Ryers ran as a human being to the way I'm ran requires different detoxification.
Yes.
So one of the things that I think is really important is that there are some beings that function more in the lower chakras and some that function more in the higher chakras. Now, I was one of those beings that was very much higher chakra activated, and I'm already very open in my crown. So when I tried to use fasting, when I was unaware of what fasting actually really did, which was clear and bring through a lot of downloads and intensify the energies, I ended up having seizures from having too many downloads at once. And so there is an awareness of, okay, how does your body function? If you can scan and everything is like, okay, feel into my body, where needs to be detox? Maybe my detoxification's mostly in my crown chakra, which means no TV, no phones, no stimulation of maybe I need to do a silent retreat, right?
Or a darkness retreat.
Yeah, something that doesn't stimulate me in that way, in a way that I can cut off from the excess thought to recalibrate. And then it's like, okay, depending on where I'm sitting within my body, what is a detox that would be helpful for that body's way of functioning without putting stress on it, right? Because a detox is not helpful if you're creating more stress in your body. You want it to be easeful.
And I would just put a disclaimer here. If a detox is something that you're interested in, then I would recommend reaching out to, not necessarily a licensed professional, but someone that actually knows how to lead you through that process and what you need to be able to bring your body back to a state of coherence.
Yeah, and I mean, in that, it's there are many different ways. Like someone, myself and Rye could definitely go, okay, if you're feeling like you're needing some kind of reset, detox, integration, maybe you've been feeling all of these frequency shifts and you're like, there's so much energy, I don't know how to ground this in, I don't know what to do. But you have a session specifically on, how do I integrate this into my field? What needs to be, what breath work? Because the different breath works will have different, some are very activating, some are very grounding, some are very relaxing, right? And there's a breath for everything. And there's also like a meditation practice for everything. There's a different process that can be guided. And when you have someone, and if you're intuitive enough, you might be able to do that with yourself and sit and go, okay, well, what is it that would be helpful for me in a routine, in food, in liquids, in a practice to stabilize myself, to bring myself into some more coherence so that I can function in this reality as we continue to move through the Great Awakening.
And I mean, it really filters out into all areas of your life. When, your nervous system is calm and you feel integrated and embodied within your body, every area of your life begins to improve. And something.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's around bringing in the more multi-dimensional detox. What, if you look at it from not just a physical standpoint, what are some of the ways that you could educate people in the multidimensional ways of detoxing?
So multidimensionally detoxing, like closing yourself off from the multidimensional, is that what you're saying?
Well, if you want to speak, why would someone need to do that?
I mean, for me, I wouldn't want to do that, but
Okay, I'll give you so one of the reasons I've found for this, and it's quite interesting that it's come up, is that I have worked with some specific men mostly that have been previous addicts or had very strong mental health, depression, suicidal thoughts, and then they start going into meditation and opening themselves up to these higher realms. And so they've gone from a really low base consciousness, and then they go up into these really high levels, and they get stuck up there. And what happens is there's this paranoia, schizophrenia, and there's this seeking and there's this journeying.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I almost like completely forgot about that aspect of my awakening. So I had a Kundalini awakening about 4 years ago, and I was living in the middle of the city, grid systems everywhere, traffic everywhere, and where, you know, I could look into a body and see like the blood flowing, the electricity going through the power lines, and, you know, all this trauma within the body, you know, as the Kundalini is rising. Unless that's why, like the yogis, they teach a purification process similar to the Baraka process, you know, the moksha. And, you know, if you don't purify the chakra one by one by one by one, you know, you're literally going to be in hell. You know, there's a book called The Divine Comedy, I believe, Dante's Inferno, that is about the 7 chakra centers and the 7 layers of hell. And if you don't go through a period of purification in each chakra, then it will be paranoia, because you don't know what spirits have the ability to contact you. And, you know, that's why for me, it's like I prefer to be in the jungle or out in the middle of nowhere where there are not grids. And, you know, there's not a lot of people around, because I'm tapping into consciousness of the land, the consciousness of the people, the magnetic fields. You know, it's hard for me to be on computers or around Wi-Fi for very long, because I feel this sense of contraction when that happens. And when we have the contraction, so the contraction is what allows the story to drop in. When we're living life fully in expansion, then, you know, the story, it can't waver us. It's like we are just allowing life to move through us and out, through us and out, through us and out, instead of attaching to the identity of the story that is wanting to hijack the vessel. I call it the Mr. Smith program, like the Matrix.
Yeah. And that sense of losing a sense of reality based on these influxes of energy and coming out of the body, it's the lack of groundedness, not knowing what's real and what's not knowing whose energy field you're in, not knowing what entities are working through you, not actually knowing truth, because you can't find truth if you're disconnected from your body. You can't feel it. And so you can't feel the vibratory resonance of truth. And so there is a lot of mind trickery. You might have a sense of it, but there's also so much delusion that sits there. And that delusional aspect, that's exactly what, say, some of these entities or demonic energies that are working through the field that you don't even see desire, because they're like, great, we have an empty vessel that we can work through because this being's not in their body. And with that, they will put suicidal thoughts. You know, I've had some really upsetting things. And so this comes back to detoxing, right? I do believe wholeheartedly some people need to detox themselves from the quantum field. They need to unplug and be a human and go, why did I want to get out of my body? because there's a lot of trauma here that is unprocessed in my human experience, that feels freer and more safe than being here in my physical.
Well, as you were speaking into a minute ago, you know, a lot of us, like we disassociate and we go up into our higher centers, especially as children when we have wounding and we're not seen by our parents. And you know, we create this story that in order to be loved, we have to, you know, we have to people please. So the people pleasing mentality is, you know, tuning ourselves to other people's energy. So, you know, to be of service to them. And what that is doing, that's not allowing us to find our field, but to be in other people's field constantly and let others create our reality for us. And then we forget how to come back to our body. So we then become very intuitive and very much attuned to the Akashic field and the spiritual world around us. But then Earth is very strange. We want to escape this world. And, you know, a lot of us then, you know, escape this reality through drugs and everything else because we're completely disassociated through, it's usually severed from our solar plexus down. You know, we can feel our heart, we can feel our throat, but a lot of us, our throat is not fully online either because we're scared to speak our truth because of the people pleasing aspect. So yeah, a journey of mine over the past year and a half has really been grounding down, claiming my voice, claiming my power, claiming my sexuality, and claiming my creation, and being able to open my lower centers in order to ascend again.
Yeah, beautifully said. And as Raya said, there is just, it's quite fascinating to see how many people have cut themselves in half.
Yeah.
Which is something that I see a lot in the circuitry system and the quantum healing work that I do. And there is many areas within the physical body that are, you know, we can completely rewire our heart space as well. There's all these different interesting aspects that happen based on trauma and survival. And I feel like we could go into a whole nother pocket there, and I'm going to redirect us.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like when we are going down and we're clearing these lower chakras and we are bringing our awareness from, you know, the multidimensional, the monad self, right, into the physical vessel. It's not that we are losing connection to that. We always have connection to that, but it's like because once we have attuned to that frequency and once we've had that connection, we never lose it. It's that intention, and then the knowledge comes back. So I just want to bring that into the field, is we're not losing connection to that. You know, it's our limitations, our human boxes that, you know, tell us, oh, we're an illusion, we're creating this story and everything else. Because me, it's like I can be integrated in this world now and I can do all these things, and all I have to do is bring in an intention, bring in an invocation, you know, create a ceremony, and I can become that conduit of spirit. And I feel more embodied in my body than I ever have before.
Yeah. And to additionally add to that, it's like that connection is not lost. It's actually interpreting source or that connection, that intuitive guidance in a new way.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, okay, my body's wisdom has its own source guidance. Yeah. My heart has its own way of expressing source through it. So this higher mind can actually come through the mycelium network of the body and the circulatory system and all the receptors and the hair follicles and the things that are within your physical that are there guiding you to receive this infinite intelligence all of the time.
So we have all the information of the universe encoded within ourselves. We are literally a living library of light. You know, many do not realize the potentiality and the power that we all hold within each cell, each molecule, and with each strand of our DNA.
Yeah, infinite.
Infinite.
So on that, how are some of the ways that you work with people in connecting to their infinite nature and their remembrance?
So I have traveled around the world connecting to different temples. And when I connect to different temples around the world through Egypt, Greece, Cambodia, Jordan, it has allowed soul fragments to come back to me. I have when I sleep at night, a lot of times I'm astral traveling, I'm in classrooms, so I'm being taught the information of the new blueprint of the new earth. And so I create containers, group containers, and I also work one-on-one. And the process that I've created in my group containers is merging breath work, quantum healing, usually blue lotus, sound frequency and vibration, and kundalini. And what I'm doing within that and within my personal containers is I am working with the energetic body, the mental body, and the emotional body. So it's like we are working with the nervous system, rewiring the nervous system, upgrading the nervous system for the sixth dimension up, because the third and the fourth dimensional nervous system, it cannot hold the bandwidth of the higher dimensions. So this is giving the opportunity to work with the quantum field and work with the toroidal field and the codex of the toroidal field, because we have this coding that is within our field around our body that normally, when our heart is fully expanded, it goes beyond 6 feet in all directions, and it is encoded with holographic light codes. And these codes a lot of times are inverted, or there's implants within layers of the astral field. It looks like a layer of an onion, right? And these implants, they then send signals and they send frequencies that feed off the frequency of fear. And so what I do online is kundalini breath, is working with the quantum field. In person, it is more getting into the somatics and working with the body and rewiring layers of consciousness through all the bodies, to ground in this Christos technology of our inner solar technology, which is our solar plexus. So really awakening the solar sun within ourselves to really reclaim our power, our essence, our divinity, and our purity.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you may have heard me talk about working in the Trinity and how a lot of the modalities, healers, different coaches, is not saying that what they're doing is wrong. It's just their capacity, where they're at on their journey, where they're working in. But there tends to be a focus on one of these pillars. And the way myself and Raya work is what he was explaining around the physical, the energy, and the emotional is the Trinity, which is mind, body, spirit, or you could say consciousness, vessel, mind, body, soul, or consciousness, vessel, spirit. And that's the more evolved fifth dimensional concept of the human being. And this way, when you are working with it, whether you're in physical presence, the way Raya was explaining, he works in groups, is he's concentrating on the physical body, but he's also working in the energetics with the kundalini, and the being is able to access their energy within, and their thoughts start to come to the surface to be alchemized. And so it's a holistic process of talking through meditation, using the somatics as a way to release, but opening different ways of moving through that. There are definitely a lot of amazing processes that you can use to integrate, say, a somatic process like that, where working with someone one-on-one or continuing work to look at the thought forms that came up, right, and to make sense and integrate that. And it is very important to work in all three areas, because what happens is if you work in one area, then your other area, you're really dominant and you're well versed. And what happens is you can actually trick yourself in that area because it's so so developed, and these other areas aren't. And then you can stagnate your growth, you can deny an aspect of yourself, or you can end up going through a massive another dark night of the soul, because you're like, oh my God, I've denied myself this entire part of myself. So for people that might be resonating to working with you or reaching out, how can they get in contact with you to start work with you?
So the best way would either be through Facebook, or I'm moving more of my content from Facebook to Instagram, and you can find me on Instagram at Raya of Earth, or Raya White Wolf on Facebook. Something that I forgot to add to my process too, and I don't know why this was forgotten, but as a seer, I have the ability to see into the aspects and the blockages within the body, and really begin to get into the nervous system and the framework of the consciousness. And like, I can see implants, I can see things that a normal eye cannot. I see past lives, I see people's past lives. And I also, like, in group settings, they're set up as ceremonies. Like, we call in the directions, it's set up similar to a plant medicine ceremony. And that's something that is very strong on my path, is the path of shamanism. So I incorporate the path of shamanism into all of this, and the way that I utilize sound healing. And it's like, things that I found that have resonated deeply with me on my path, I've then incorporated it all into this mastery.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I, as an oracle, although I'm a seer, I don't see the same way Raya does. Raya has an amazing third eye vision, and he can he can see through different timelines. He can see the structures and the fabrics of reality. He can see the cellular and the molecular aspects, and where there's entities or distortion or technologies. And it's powerful because he can go in, and I've just had a bodywork session from him this morning, one of 4, because I did the thing that I was just telling you not to do, which is I worked on these other pillars of my Trinity, and my body got left behind. And so I'm still catching up for my body to really, and it's just gotten to anchoring that Christos now, but there's still a lot of restructuring to do. And had I have not avoided the somatic aspects, the physical aspects of my journey, I wouldn't be playing catch up. It would have been more easeful and graceful. I would have had more energy. I would have had less times where I was laid out in bed because my body couldn't hold the frequency that I was bringing in and the service that I was being called to. And so the reason that it's so powerful is because I could somatically, yes, I could work on myself. It's definitely, when you're doing a lot of this work already, we need each other. We have different gifts, we have different abilities, and Raya's capacity to use his hands-on healing as well as his third eye vision to look into the cellular structure, to see the light codes, to see, because I've got a crystalline library built into my body that's slowly coming out and releasing and bringing it back to the Earth's consciousness. And I require someone who has the capacity to actually see what is coded and holding those aspects of consciousness stored in the crystalline expression, so they can be unlocked, integrated, and gifted back out. And we all have these crystalline energies. I just chose to hold a few more than the average human being, just like Raya's third eye is extremely powerful, and it is his gift, and he can use these other different modalities where he's brought them together. He sees a framework, he brings his own essence, and it's not actually any of those modalities. It's Raya's medicine and magic that provides this. And my medicine and magic is very different. It's like I have the ability to do the same thing. So he could look into my sacral chakra and go, I can see this, this, and this. Whereas I go in and I feel into his sacral chakra, and I look at light. So light is the first thing that comes through for me. And then I translate light into tangible word and vibrational resonance of that. And so I find the story or the narrative or the belief system or the structures that are created more in language of the thought forms that created the vibrational resonance of the emotion, so that it can be unlocked in language and then in light. And when you have different beings that can use these together, then you also get a more holistic transformation.
And for me, I just use my third eye and my hands, because I have a channel Kundalini energy and my third eye and my voice. So I don't speak tangible frequency into word like you do, but through music and sound and vibration is the way that I do. So it's amazing when we can come together, when we can support each other in community and share our gifts. That is the frequency of the new earth, to be able to come together in unison and to really embrace each other's brilliance and to utilize each other's gifts and to create these amazing containers together. And I am just so honored to be on this path. 4 years ago, I would have never thought that this would be me now. And ever since the Kundalini awakening happened, it was literally like I shifted timelines. I awakened from a dream. I was living in the middle of the grid, just completely out of my body, out of reality. And now, being able to be of service, to be, the teacher, the healer, the mystic, the king, to bring together all the people to activate the tribe so we can all support each other and to really assist humanity in this evolution of consciousness that we are all going through.
Beautiful. A hold of that. I actually cannot say anything to that other than thank you for your time, your energy, and your presence here.
We do have one more thing to share.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to telepathically.
Okay. Okay. And you're telepathically communicating it to me right now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. So if you're resonating to this conversation, to both of us as facilitators, we do have a retreat coming up in November, around the 11th of the 11th in Egypt. We both have very strong lineages from Egypt, both different, different perspectives, divine masculine, divine feminine, different interpretations of reality, and also how we can assist in your remembrance, in quantum healing, and aligning you to your soul's path. That was the thing, right?
That was the thing.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak more?
Yeah.
That's what we'll be doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is going to be a 5-night, 6-day retreat. It will be a pyramid tour, so we will have private access into the Giza Plateau. We will be going into Saqqara, the Dashur Pyramid, and the Temple of Ra. And then we will end up in the Siwa Desert Oasis, which is the resurrection point of, they say the Siwa Oasis carries all the information of the Nile. It is like the Akashic record, right? And there will be add-ons and things where you can join us on many more adventures while we were in Egypt. But this is just the basic framework. And so there will be workshops, Kundalini activation, ceremonies, quantum healing, past life regression, all these amazing things that you have the opportunity to come hang out with us for 5 days. How does that sound?
And yeah, I'm for a being that said should never go back to Egypt, I am very much looking forward to returning to it in this time space continuum, and using the sacred wisdoms, the knowledge, what has been purified and alchemized. We've both worked a lot in integrating the ancient Egypt wisdoms, the frequencies, the light technologies. So it is far more than just a Egyptian retreat. You will be traversing deep realms of priest, priestess, god, goddess energy. So if there is a resonance, please comment in the comments below so that when we do launch it, we can link you to the email list. We can send you the information, as it is going to be limited to 22 people. And it is an initiation retreat for next year's 11/11 retreat.
And next year's will be similar to what I was just initiated through self-initiation on 12/12 of this past year. So it will be going from the 7 chakra temples all the way up the Nile, to purify the 33 levels of consciousness. And that connects back to the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual bodies. In ancient Egypt, the pilgrims would take this path through the Nile going, because every temple, when you look at the Nile River, it is the structure of a human, and the biggest human on earth. And the crown chakra, where all the chakras of the earth go into the Giza Plateau, all the chakras of the earth. So it's like collecting all of the energy of the earth into that one point in the center of the earth, which happens to be the center of the galaxy. So we would start at the Isis temple, this temple of Philae, going to Kumbo Umbo, then into the temple of Edfu, Dendara, Abydos, Giza, and then ending up in Siwa again.
So if you're feeling excited for either of those, please let us know. You can either place your email in the comments and we can add you to the email list so that you're able to receive first invitations in the opening. Or otherwise you can reach out to either of us directly. I will put Araya's information into the description box. Follow him on Facebook and Instagram, and thank you for receiving this beautiful transmission. And thank you for taking the time to bring your presence, your wisdom, your knowledge, all of you to this space. It was beautiful to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for introducing me and desiring me to be in this space with you and to co-create with me. I'm very honored.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. And with that, how?
And we will get a hold of anyone that reaches out. We will let you know the logistics. We're planning everything right now, so the logistics will be released in a couple days to a week.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.